has been dogging Gen Z and calling them lazy for not wanting to work a 9-to-5 for the rest of their lives.
Hiring say job interview skills have been hurt by social media, isolation during COVID.
I worked for a startup and they didn't have the workload or the bandwidth.
What's this meeting for?
Unfortunately, today we're cutting staff and you've been affected.
They look down, they look away, they don't look at the person that they're talking to.
This is not what I expected. I graduated college with 2 degrees in communications and acting.
A generation of digital natives, those that have had the internet their entire lives. The youngest of Gen Z have never experienced life without social media. With a generation so geared with information, you would think finding a job would not be a challenge, right? After all, this is the generation, my generation, of social media detectives and chronically online keyboard warriors. You'd think they would be able to sniff out opportunities with ease. Well, not so much. We have seen a constant flood of Gen Zers express their anguish on social media. Some say that these posts are anecdotal, while many argue that these numbers don't lie. Gen Z really is dealing with a tougher job market. Well, sit back, relax, as we discover why Gen Z can't find a job. In 2020, the world changed forever. We all ran out of toilet paper and, those were tough times, but the pandemic created a technology-rich environment. It made working from home the new normal. Social media jobs blossomed out of nowhere. Soon everyone was doing calls with their dogs instead of in a cubicle with their coworkers. This huge technological shift to Zoom, Google, and Microsoft business softwares took many people off guard. Instantly, we progressed a decade. In just a month, the oldest of Gen Z was now entering the workforce, graduating in an odd pandemic-led time. Gen Z college students and high school students were learning how valuable they were in this new technological oasis that lay before them. So why would this new oasis be so difficult to navigate? Enter Michaela. She's a recent college grad from Auburn who majored in journalism, double minored in Spanish and marketing. She, like many other Gen Zers, expressed anxiety and what we call imposter syndrome.
Whenever I get off Zoom calls with news directors for stations I'm applying to, I always feel self-conscious that they were not impressed by the way I spoke, sound nervous and stumble over my words sometimes, and I think that's because subconsciously, I never felt truly prepared to be thrown into a real-world interview.
Now, this is a very common trend with Gen Z. They feel unprepared and saying that their college did not prepare them for interviews. Now, from my anecdotal experience, this is a two-way street. Having been to many universities and researched many across the country, the resources are there for most colleges to have programs or mentors for students to practice their interview skills, especially like a 4-year university like the example we gave in Auburn. The resources are there. So if the resources are there, why are students saying they're not getting interview prep at all? Well, anxiety.
We had graphs showing that around 2013, rates of anxiety, depression, and self-harm began rising rapidly.
Heard of menu anxiety?
It's safe to assume that Gen Z is the most anxious generation ever in history. According to data from an IT firm, a survey of people around 18 to 26, so college students, those just entering the workforce, said around 54% of those Gen Z correspondents mentioned that they had more anxiety in 2024 than the previous year. That means there's more anxious Gen Zers out there today than there was last year. And some of these stats are even more alarming. 43% of Gen Z experience a panic attack at least once a month. 1 in 3 actually take medication to resolve those anxieties. Quite frankly, I think these survey results are fairly accurate. Just talk to a few Gen Zers down the street and you'll know. You can even go on TikTok and Reddit and you'll get a pretty good grasp on what exactly is going on out there. Now, I believe it's important to talk about mental health, and the discussions about it may help many people to get the care they need. On the other hand, capitalism is tough and it's cutthroat. Love it or hate it, we were born into the system. And the workplace, for many, can be an extremely anxiety-inducing place. I think we must take the mental health crisis head on if we want to improve Gen Z's mental well-being as they enter the workforce. Programs at high schools and colleges may be a good start, but will they fully solve the issue? Let me know in the comment section below. So this is a huge ripple effect. We have an entire generation that is experiencing a mental health crisis due to a wide variety of factors, and it's definitely affecting their job prospects. Now, the mental health crisis isn't solely affecting younger generations. It's also affecting older generations. But with Gen Z, it's hitting their prime years. It's hitting those years right out of college where many would like to be developing their career. It's even affecting the marriage rates. Now, how are hiring managers feeling about Gen Z grads? Well, not so good. In a December 2023 study, the New Jersey-based research group Intelligent surveyed around 800 US managers, directors, and executives who were involved in hiring process. The respondents reported that Gen Z candidates struggled to pick up professional cues, causing around 39% of employers to favor hiring older candidates. About 60% of those employers said that they're willing to offer more benefits and pay higher salaries to attract older workers rather than the recent college grads. This is definitely unprecedented. It has always been that recent college grads would offer new perspectives and would be a great asset for companies and their growth. And while this may be true still at many firms, other companies are starting to change their tune, and they're doing it fast, as outlined in these findings and the opinions of executives out there. 1 in 5 employers reported that recent college grads are generally unprepared when it comes to interviewing for a job. This goes back to Michaela earlier, saying that their college didn't prepare them for these interviews. But we know that this is a two-way street. As another personal anecdote here, I remember my college having several interview prep workshops in which I attended. I was shocked to know that there wasn't too many other students there. I was one of the only students there, and I was like, we are paying for this. Why aren't we using this? My university has spent resources to offer interview prep to me and a few others, but more students should have been there. This goes back to those anxiety figures. If people are more anxious, they're less likely to ask for help. And I think that's exactly what's going on across the country in waves across universities everywhere. Workshops and tutoring sessions are remaining empty, while students claim their university never offered them the resources to succeed or to land a job. Now, to be fair, many universities still have a lack of resources and may not offer the most thorough assistance possible, and especially in this new Zoom world that we're living in. But those are the smaller end of the spectrum. Overall, this is a huge portion of Gen Z, and they're experiencing huge amounts of anxiety. 63% of employers consider Gen Z employees to be entitled, while 58% said they get offended way too easily and overall are unprepared for the workforce. Employers also noted that their youngest employees lack professionalism and do not respond well to feedback and have poor communication skills. Now, these stats seem a bit harsh. It's pretty normal for there to be a lower sentiment for younger coworkers. It seems like that's always happened, but it's definitely more unfortunate and wrong that it's still there. On the other hand, these numbers don't surprise me, considering while going to college a few years ago, I noticed pajamas were starting to become an interesting fashion statement. Now, I'm not sure if pajamas were a thing back then in colleges or previous generations. Let me know. Comment down below if students used to wear pajamas, because I think it's quite insane, frankly. Just my opinion. Now, why is Gen Z so anxious? After all, some could argue that they were dealt a better hand than their previous generation before them. Millennials dealt with one of the slowest moments of economic growth ever. They dealt with the Great Recession. In my opinion, I think we can tie a lot of anxiety related to Gen Z with economic anxiety. Diving into social media, and it becomes evident that Gen Z is so anxious and they're increasingly losing hope on the American dream.
Why I make over 3 times the federal minimum wage and I cannot afford to live.
I do not make enough to live on my own. I would not make enough to pay rent, water, electric, and eat.
In a nutshell, many Gen Zers have expressed their disdain on not being able to afford a home or not being able to buy a car. The list goes on and on. Thousands of young people are expressing this worry across the country. But it's not just the United States, it's worldwide. According to a global HR company, they surveyed Gen Z and they noted a sudden rise in the cost of living led to an 84% of UK workers having anxiety. And who can blame them? In just the past 10 years, housing prices have exploded in the UK, driving anxiety to increase. Here in the United States, housing prices are out of control, with high interest rates and a low supply of homes being the culprit.
Cost of living pressures. But despite all that, last month, the latest data shows house prices actually went up a little bit.
And all this information moves fast. It's leading to an increase of anxiety for many Gen Z. In their eyes, why work if you'll never be able to retire or even have enough money or savings to buy a home?
I am never going to buy a house in my lifetime. People keep talking about the housing bubble bursting sometime soon, but let's be real, that's never going to happen. $500,000 basic. Starter homes are just going to become the new normal, just like $4 per gallon gas and $20 small McDonald's meals. When I'm done college, I'm just going to move back in with my parents and inherit their house. There is no alternative.
Seems like every day we're constantly being reminded that costs have gone up, whether it be rent, food, services, or in Gen Z's case, college. But this is an everywhere problem and an anyone problem, not just for consumers, but also corporations. The pandemic brought many different trends, and one of them was a flood of new jobs for recent graduates. Large tech companies were on a hiring spree in an era of easy money. Interest rates being near 0%, every company was overhiring. But this overhiring came at a huge cost. It meant that companies gave a lot of false promises. There simply were too many workers out there, many of those being the oldest cohort of Gen Z. And when the money printers turned off and easy money became tough money, the jobs went away, just like those false promises. You might have seen viral videos like this.
Hey, Brittany.
Hi. So I disagree that my performance hasn't been, I haven't met performance expectations.
Now, many videos like this explain and highlight the current state of Gen Z and its employment status. Many were hired in positions that didn't really have much work to do. Simply put, many Gen Zers were ready to work, yet those jobs that they got into had no work to begin with. And how could a world that was going through a pandemic and an economy that was recovering have room for work? You know, there was a huge drop of productivity. And now fast forward to 2024, many of those workers who were overhired and unemployed are Gen Z people. With a new set of Gen Z graduates to enter the workforce this summer, we can anticipate an even tougher job market, especially for those desirable white-collar jobs. Now, I know what you're thinking. The jobs report just came out this past April and March, and it was better than expected. Shouldn't jobs be available for all of Gen Z? Well, yes and no. The economic data suggests that the recent jobs report from March 2024 suggests an influx of foreign-born workers drove the unemployment rate down. Another factor noted by a researcher suggested that people don't always accurately report their employment in the household surveys. In a strong labor market, for example, retirees might pick up part-time work but not consider themselves employed. It's also important to note that these jobs aren't cushy six-figure jobs. They're jobs that have low pay, think like a Chipotle or a McDonald's. White-collar hiring has slowed since that pandemic hiring spree. You know, it's important to note that over the past few years, prices have been out of control. That means, unfortunately, a lot of people are picking up second shifts. They're picking up second or even third jobs. That's not really the best thing for the consumer. That's not really the best thing for the average American. So they kind of fluff up those job report numbers and it looks a lot better than it actually is. Just go down the street, talk to an average person. They'll tell you that they might have needed to change their spending habits or even find another job, whether it be a gig job or a part-time job. People are struggling out there. It's not so easy as this economic data perceives it to be. White-collar work was supposed to be the holy grail of employment. High school and college prepared all of us, prepared an entire generation to seek out that white-collar job. Those cushy white-collar jobs are pretty tough to find. You can just head over to social media and you'll see that there's many Gen Z graduates that have had to apply to more than 1,000 jobs before landing their desired job. But is Gen Z fully doomed? In my opinion, I don't think so. I've seen many peers and many people a part of this generation with an enormous amount of intelligence and professionalism. This is a generation. If they have the right amount of wit, they can achieve success, whatever it may be. The information is at Gen Z's disposal. Half of Gen Z, and I'm overgeneralizing here, is not prepared to enter the workforce. In a nation that is seemingly becoming more cutthroat by the year. In a nation of renters, Gen Z will have to become more savvy than previous generations to obtain the American dream. For those that are lost and unsure, there will be a more challenging road than their parents. Well guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Let me know what you think about Gen Z. Are they doomed, or do you think better days are ahead for Gen Z? Let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to like this video, hit that subscribe button. It really helps us out. It really helps the channel grow. And this will definitely be the type of setup going forward. We have a lot of interesting videos planned throughout this year, so definitely subscribe and be tuned.